Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We sift through all the noise, the data, and give you the insight you need. Today, we're really focusing in laser-like on the Kansas City Chiefs and that Week 9 performance. The 28-21 loss to Buffalo, it felt like more than just a loss.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just, a tough divisional game where they fell short. Looking across the source material, the consensus is pretty clear. This game kind of ripped the Band-Aid off some real internal flaws.
Right, because the story going in was Chiefs had won 5 of their last 6. They were supposed to, reassert themselves in the AFC.
And instead, they leave Highmark Stadium looking pretty humbled, sitting there at 5-4.
And that 5-4 record, it underscores a big worry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This was their 5th straight regular season loss to the Bills.
Exactly. And now, okay, they've handled Buffalo in the playoffs before, we know that. But consistently losing to them in the regular season, that points to maybe a tactical blind spot, something Buffalo keeps exploiting. It's a worrying trend.
So our mission today isn't just the score. It's identifying those critical systemic problems the loss really brought to light. Problems that, according to the sources, have kind of been bubbling under the surface all season, even in some wins.
Yeah, because the phrase that keeps popping up is that this team just doesn't have the same margin for error anymore. They can't just rely on brilliance to bail them out every time.
And what's really interesting, you look at the film reviews, the analysis. It's less about, wow, the Bills were incredible, and more about the Chiefs just lacking structure, lacking execution, especially when things got tight.
And you have to start with the guy at the center of it all, Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because the stats, they really do scream frustration. Our analysis basically calls it his worst outing of the season.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue. The offense just sputtered right from the get-go. Mahomes only completes 15 of 34 passes.
15 of 34, wow.
And no touchdown passes. First time that's happened in almost a whole year. That stat alone tells you something was fundamentally off.
That's really staggering for him. But let's get into the specifics. What metrics really defined this low point?
Well, that completion percentage is the big one. Just 46.7%. The deeper dives show that's actually the lowest of his entire career.
Lowest ever.
Lowest ever, finished with only 186 yards, threw a pick. And it wasn't just the stats, it was the pressure.
Right, because the Bills' defensive front, they were relentless. You've got Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau. These guys are elite. Mahomes got sacked 3 times, but hit another 9 times.
Yeah, and that constant pressure, it really exposed something. The Chiefs' offense right now feels built on improv, maybe too much improv, not enough solid protection that removes their safety net, The sources really emphasize it wasn't just Buffalo's great D-line, it was Kansas City's own lack of structure. Too many long developing routes, forcing Mahomes to scramble instead of just operating within the play design.
And this phrase, off-platform throws, kept coming up. Why is that such a sign of things breaking down?
Because those throws, they're basically a symptom of chaos, right? It means he's not setting his feet, he's throwing off his back foot, maybe rolling out when he doesn't need to, just trying to make something happen. It turns calculated reads into, lottery tickets.
Yeah.
Especially when simple checkdowns were there. The timing with receivers like Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, it just looked off, like they weren't quite on the same page from the snap.
We see great quarterbacks sometimes try to do too much when things go wrong. Was there a moment, a play, that really summed up that frustration taking over?
Oh, definitely. That sequence in the third quarter, it was a huge 4th down play. Mahomes has Rashee Rice wide open in the flat, easy first down, high percentage play.
The smart play.
The smart play, exactly. But instead, he takes his deep shot downfield that just sails incomplete. He was forcing it, trying for the home run when they just needed a single. You could almost see the frustration dictating the decision-making, not just, reacting to the defense.
Okay, so if the passing game was that broken, you'd think, lean on the run game, right? Strictly to counter that pass rush. But what happened there?
Well, that's what makes it so confusing, because early on, they actually had some success running the ball, even with Isaiah Pacheco out, which was a big loss.
Right, he brings that physicality.
He really does. But Kareem Hunt stepped in, ripped off some nice games. He finished with 49 yards and a touchdown. And their first score, it was actually a trick play. A Wildcat snapped to Rice for a 3-yard run, so they showed they could move it on the ground.
But then they stopped.
The analysis highlights how they just inexplicably moved away from what was working, started leaning super heavily on Mahomes' arm, even though he was struggling.
Which just plays right into the Bills' hands, letting their pass rushers pin their ears back.
Exactly. No balance. They became one-dimensional. It allowed Buffalo's D-line to just completely dictate the tempo. They knew what was coming. It was like walking right into the trap they set.
And there was that one moment, that decision near the goal line that really seemed to capture that abandonment of the run.
Oh, yeah. Late second quarter, balls on the 1-yard line, chance to tie the game going into halftime. Huge momentum swing, potentially.
And they throw it.
And they opt for an incomplete pass. Think about that. 1 yard out. Against a team you need to impose your will on physically. And you choose finesse. That decision really let Buffalo keep control going into the break.
So without that balance, without Pacheco's punishing style, the run game just, poof,
Yeah.
vanished entirely as the Bills pulled away.
Yep, the offense got predictable, kind of passive, honestly, easy to defend.
And while all that was happening on offense, the defense,
Yeah.
which, let's be honest, had been maybe their strongest unit, one of the best in the league through 8 weeks,
Right.
they had their own meltdown. It was quite the drop-off.
Massive drop-off, yeah. Josh Allen, I mean, he didn't just manage the game. The sources call it a masterclass in control. He dissected the Chiefs with surgical efficiency.
Okay, give us the damage report from the defensive side. What did Allen do?
Get this. Allen completed 23 of 26 passes. 23 of 26. For 273 yards, 2 passing TDs, and he ran for another one. That kind of efficiency against a defense that had been playing so well, it's stunning.
Wow.
And it wasn't just him through the air. James Cook, their running back, absolutely gashed them. 114 yards on the ground, so the defense couldn't stop the run or the pass. It was a total breakdown.
That really points to issues at multiple levels.
Yeah.
Containment problems, secondary issues, linebackers. Where were the Bills really hurting them?
The tight ends were a huge problem. It looked like fundamental issues with coverage assignments. Dalton Kincaid, the rookie tight end for Buffalo, he torched them, as one source put it. Big gains, 23 yards, 16 yards. And the killer was a wide-open touchdown pass to Kincaid where linebacker Drew Tranquil apparently slipped in coverage. Now, okay, players slip. But for a guy to be that wide open, it points to bigger communication issues in their zone schemes.
So was this just an off day for the players? Guys having bad games? Or does the analysis suggest something deeper, more systemic on defense?
The analysis leans heavily towards systemic failure. When you see repeated missed tackles, plus those communication breakdowns leaving guys wide open, it's not just one player messing up. It suggests a lack of discipline, maybe poor containment strategy across the whole unit, turning manageable third downs for the Bills into easy conversions, then touchdowns. Against Allen, you just can't do that. It's a death sentence.
Which inevitably brings us to the coaching staff. When things fall apart this badly on both sides of the ball, you have to look at preparation. You have to look at in-game adjustments.
Absolutely. And the criticism for Andy Reid and offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, it's pretty sharp in the sources we looked at. They basically got called out for looking completely unprepared for Buffalo's blitz packages.
How so? What they failed to do?
Well, they didn't seem to adjust protections effectively. And maybe more critically, they hardly ever called quick hitting plays to counter that pressure. You know, screens, slants, quick outs, ways to make the defense pay for blitzing.
Right. That's blitz beating 101. If they send extra guys, get the ball out fast to where they vacated. But instead,
they kept trying these long developing routes, which just left Mahomes exposed, right? Gave the rush more time to get home, kept the receivers out of sync with him. It was a real failure to counterpunch. They just kept running plays that weren't working, letting Buffalo stay in control up front.
and defensively, Steve Spagnuolo's unit, the word used was flat and reactive.
Yeah, the analysis suggests the defense was almost playing passively. They weren't disguising coverage as well, which makes the pre-snap read super easy for a quarterback like Allen. Buffalo just seemed, quote, a step ahead on nearly every snap. The Chiefs' defense wasn't playing with that aggressive, unpredictable style they usually have.
And what makes this really concerning is, it's not the first time this season, is it? That feeling of being slow to adjust, maybe a bit conservative, starting slow. It felt a lot like their loss earlier this season to Baltimore.
That's the really troubling part. It suggests a pattern, right? A pattern of maybe struggling to adapt in real time during these big marquee matchups. When the other team comes in with a good plan against them, the Chiefs seem to have trouble finding that counter move during the game. Coaching didn't lose the game single-handedly, obviously, but the failure to maybe provide better tactical answers really hurt them, turned a potentially close game into, well, what we saw.
Okay, so let's try and bring all these threads together. What's the big takeaway here?
Yeah.
The sources seem to conclude that maybe the Chiefs relied on Mahomes' magic and Reid's genius for a long time to cover up some smaller cracks. And now, that margin for error is just gone.
It feels like it's evaporated. Yeah. The cracks are showing everywhere now.
Yeah.
Mahomes looked, well, mortal, partly because he wasn't getting the protection or the systematic support. The run game, it lacked identity, then got abandoned, and the defense just got pushed around. Bullied, really.
Yeah.
Now, look, inconsistency, injuries, those things play a role. But the sources keep coming back to fundamental issues. Balance on offense, execution across the board, discipline on defense. These need fixing, and the accountability, they argue, has to start right at the top.
So if they want another deep playoff run, they've got to find that balance, that execution, that discipline again, and fast. Because right now, the mistakes, the self-inflicted wounds, they're becoming too common, too predictable.
Which kind of leaves you with this final thought to chew on, right? We know Buffalo is their regular season kryptonite. That's clear. But maybe the most concerning thing from this deep dive isn't really about the Bills at all.
What is it then?
It's that maybe the Chiefs' biggest threat isn't Baltimore or Miami or any other AFC contender. Maybe their biggest threat is actually themselves. Their own lack of maybe structural commitment sometimes. Their struggle to adapt when pure brilliance isn't quite enough.
Wow. The enemy within. That's definitely something to think about. A powerful thought to leave you with as we wrap up this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.